You really have what I think in an organization, three types of leaders that are getting AI done. You have your builders, your engineers and so forth that are actually using a lot of these tools. You have integrators that understand the workflows within an organization. And then you have your connectors, the ones that understand the investments and the outcomes of that. And they all have to work together.
Welcome to the Learn It All podcast, the show for today's leaders who want to get ahead and stay ahead, because we believe great leaders aren't born or made, we're always in the making. I'm your host, Damon Lemby, 3-time best-selling author and CEO of Learn It, a live learning platform that has helped upskill over 2 million people. In just a moment, I'm going to be joined by Nick Damoulakis. Nick is the founder and CEO of Oopsies, ranked the #1 AI and custom software development company in the US by Clutch, and also recognized by Gartner as a top 25 emerging specialist consultancy. And in our conversation, we're going to dive deep into several different topics, including how in college, overnight, he built a guitar tab site that hit over 100,000 users in basically one day. He's going to share with us why he says you have to fail often, fail fast, and fail cheap. And just as important, why you need to share your failures with your team so they know it's okay to screw up. And when it comes to AI readiness, something he's super passionate about, Nick says it has to start at the top, and he's going to walk us through exactly what that could look like for you. So, Nick, take us back to the first time you were in a boardroom. Oh. What led you to be there, and what happened?
You had to start here. It was interesting. It was my first time in college. My dad dropped me off at college, took my first computer science class. And in there, the internet was just coming out, and learned how to program and created a website that taught people how to play guitar. So one of my biggest passions was to be a musician, as you can see back here. But instead of being a musician, I ended up in a computer science class. So I built a website that taught people how to play tab. Before I knew it, I was getting sponsorships from Fender, Gibson, all sorts of brands. Started reaching about 100,000 different tablatures online back in the early 90s. And one day I got a phone call to meet my professor along with some other people in a boardroom. So my first boardroom experience was walking into a room, seeing a long boardroom, just as I imagined, with all wood everywhere, right? And on one side was my teacher, another person in a black suit, the state attorney of Maryland, and the attorney of the school was in there, the president of the school, and 3 people in black suits on the other side. Harry Fox Agency, BMG, and Sony Records. And I was being sued for putting tablature online, creating this website on my school server back in the 90s. And that was my introduction to a boardroom.
And one thing I want to point out is when you say 100,000 users, that happened over like a month.
Yeah, it's pretty instant. It was the first time where, in the 90s, we really disrupted an industry. You had to go out and buy guitar tab, or you had to listen to music to figure out how to play it. So one of the ideas I had, because I was a broke college kid, was, hey, why can't we just put this online and people share? And before I knew it, there were 100,000 tabs out there of different types of music. Come to find out, it was the Beatles song, Let It Be, with the lyrics that got me in trouble.
That's awesome. So so how did it end up?
Well, it was pretty easy. They said, take it down or we're going to sue you. So I took it down. I packaged it up and gave it to another college for free. And then when they left, the president of the school asked everyone to leave except us 2, and gave me 2 options, to be expelled or to work for her. I obviously chose to work for her. And for 4 years at college, I worked full time building the website for the school or for other companies in the local area. And that was really the birth of Oopsies. That's where it happened, all because of that one incident.
And that was back in 2000, right? Right in the dot-com bubble?
1994.
Oh, 94. Sorry.
Yeah, 94.
I got ahead of myself.
Yeah. We officially started the company. I finished up school there, went up to RIT for a master's, and then that's where I officially started the company in 2000 in Rochester, New York.
There's another story that I want you to tell is the,
oh boy.
How you became proficient in Lingo.
Oh, come on, man. So you've done your research.
I ask because this is exactly the kind of things that I would do, right? We'd have somebody say back in the .com days, hey, we need to rent a classroom starting next week for 6 months. And we'd literally over the weekend get a construction crew and build it, right? Just say yes and figure it out. So that's why I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's great. And well, first let me say there's two versions of this story. So I'm going to give you my version.
Okay. Yeah.
So was graduating Frostburg State University in Maryland and was looking for a master's program to keep exploring, computer science. And one of the greatest schools that I could find out there that really hit with me was RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. And at the time, it was about a 6-hour drive. So packed up the car. At the time, I brought my girlfriend with me as well, my now wife and co-owner of Orsys, right? This is where there's two different versions, by the way. And we drove 6 hours for this meeting to get interviewed to get into their master's program in computer science. Back then, they did interviews, and we went together. They had us both in the room being interviewed at the same time. But in that meeting, the person we were talking to just didn't seem into it. They were just something was wrong. It didn't feel right. And finally, after maybe 10 minutes or so, I leaned in and I was like, look, we just drove 6 hours for this interview. This is the most important place I can be right now. And I'm feeling like you're just not engaged in this meeting. And it's hurtful. And the person just sat back in their chair and was like, I'm going to come clean with you guys. Prior to this meeting, I had to let go a TA for cheating. And I have a few weeks to figure out who's going to teach this class at RIT. And me being an entrepreneur in some way, looked him square in the eyes and was like, what's the class on? What do you got to teach? And he said, it's a programming language called Lingo. And I looked him square in the eyes and says, I can teach that. I have the skills. I can teach it for you. I'm ready and I can be here. And he said, really? Lingo? I was like, yep, I can take it. I can teach. I've been working 4 years at Frostburg State University, programming, teaching other people. And this is where there's two versions. Nick's version was, we had a great conversation. He said, hey, you're in. Not only are you in, you have a full ride. So I had a full ride for a master's degree. My version was, hey, Amy, are you with him? You're in too.
Yeah.
It didn't necessarily go like that, but that's how I remember it. Anyways, on the way home, our 6-hour drive home, about a minute into it, we get in the car and we're driving. And my now wife, Amy, looks at me and she goes, have you even heard of Lingo? No, we're going to stop by the library, Barnes and Nobles, and pick up a book. We're going to figure it out.
I love it.
So, when opportunity's out there, you got to find it. And, with programming or any technology, especially now in AI, there are no experts. You got to figure it out. You got to have the grit. You got to go for it. You got to find opportunities, and you got to believe in yourself and just going for it.
I think I want to take it back just a little bit, because the thing that you did was super important. Is you were courageous enough to stop the guy mid conversation and call him out and say, look, we've drove 6 hours to be here. A lot of individuals might just sit back because they don't want to stick their neck out there and have a tough conversation like that. What piece of advice do you have for leaders who need to get out of their comfort zone and do something like that?
It's a great question. I really think that's what people miss, is the emotional intelligence of not just having an entire conversation, but watching the body language, the eyes, just looking at everything and being able to connect dots in real time in your head. It's a skill, and people are so scared to say what they really believe in or question authority, especially when there's high stakes. That's when opportunity shines. Being courageous enough to ask the question, to say, hey, I can connect the dot here. That's one of the magical things that a gift, I guess you could say, that I had early on, where I was always had the confidence to speak out, always had the right integrity to question why things are, and to learn and keep asking questions, so I could find opportunities and hit the other person's expectation at the end of the day. So it's just kind of like how I process things in some way. I don't know where it came from. I started early on just mowing lawns and doing a little work and being a paper boy, collecting money door to door. Maybe that gave me the confidence to do that. I don't know where it necessarily came from, but I do know it's a gap in a lot of people.
Well, one thing I think that's really important is to look at a situation like that and think about, what's the worst case scenario here? The guy just kicks me out of the office. Well, at least you figured it out, right? And, instead of leaving, wondering if you missed a big opportunity like that. So I think that's amazing. Now, the second thing you said, which is really important, is I interviewed this guy named Colin Fisher, associate professor out of London, who just came out with a book called Collective Edge. And he talks about, if you really want to have a great team or be a great leader, it's all about social sensitivity. And Nick, exactly what you're talking about, reading, their body language, their movement, getting to know individuals. And if you have that skill, whether it's innate or you learn how to do it, that's one of the key traits that sets apart great leaders and great teams that people should look for. So I think that's super important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Emotional intelligence, empathy, and also just being able to storytell or have a vision and connecting all those together is all part of the equation.
So take us on a little bit of your journey with Orisys. I mean, you're going on, I think, close to 25 years now and bootstrapped.
Yeah. Started from nothing out of a dorm room, pretty much, So, we've it's been a heck of a journey. So fun. So we officially started in 2000 up at Rochester Institute of Technologies, where we started the company. My wife and I, we took on some projects with Xerox over there, and there it just kept growing and growing. And probably for the first, I would say, 12 years or so, it was a lifestyle company. We made great money. We were able to travel. We had a small team under 15, and we kind of just did our thing. At that time, it was mostly websites, with some portals or something on the back end. But really just had a good time through those years, had a great work-life balance. Everything was going great. But over time, I started noticing that I really didn't have any formal training in owning a company. And what started as a passion over time became like this liability in my head. And when things got tough, I was not a great leader at the time. I was building a toxic environment. I led with a whip. It was my way or the highway. And I really got to a certain point where I didn't even enjoy going to work anymore. And I had to look myself in the mirror and make a change. And got myself around other good leaders that I looked up to, joined some groups with other CEOs, and went on a journey of about 3 years of fixing what I screwed up in the past and accepting that and knowing that I could make something better. And out of that, I created a framework to help CEOs who build these toxic environments and helps them realign and create a vision and a mission and values that they have to live by. And that was a fun part of my life in the about 2012 or so to 2015. I really focused all my energy on that.
We've been through
a lot there, right?
No, yeah, a lot there.
Yeah.
And what I love is, we've been through pretty much 3 economic downturns. The dot-com bust, 2008, 2009, the Great Recession, of course, that one, and then even COVID can be considered that. Was there one that was most difficult for you to get through?
They all. I'm a little bit of a weirdo where I love when there's that adversity or that challenge, and I go all in. Each one of them has their difficulties from 2000 to '08, COVID, but nothing compares to AI. And they all have their challenges, but I feel like AI is probably giving us hey, we got to change something. I feel like we're the blockbuster going into an era where there's Netflix type of thing. And we're in the middle of it. And going through it and figuring it out is just a challenge and fun. It's energizing. It's scary. but by going through COVID and the '08 and 2000, we're going to get through it. Yeah.
Yeah. First chapter of my book is called Going All In.
All in.
Going all in. And we're going to get to the AI part, but let's talk a little bit more about how you help leaders or CEOs during some of these really tough times, because there's constraints, there's adversity, there's uncertainty. And I know you build a framework and I believe you did, 25 projects, maybe even with working with CEOs. So
I loved it.
Pieces of, kind of how did that work?
It was awesome. I enjoyed it more than anything. It was working with CEOs, and getting them to the point where they could acknowledge, or getting them to see that they were the issue. And then how do you get them back to what their passion was and why, and getting them to be the leader that they can be. And I loved it. And I spent about 3 years doing it. I've done a bunch of these, helping CEOs out during that time. But then it got to the point where it's like, okay, do I want to be a consultant doing this, or do I want to lead a tech company? And my passion was always just tech. I just learned something about myself of going through it that I wanted to share with others. And I did that. And then I was like, let's get back to tech. Let's go.
But when did you realize that you were the issue? I mean, you can help them, help others figure it out. But when did you realize that you were the issue, and what did you do to change?
Yeah, I can't think that there was a one time. It's a journey, and there's lots of events that happen in people's lives, and in this journey of getting to the point of, wow, it's me. I think it's when you're at the lowest. And for me, the lowest was, not only did I have this toxic company at the time, I started not believing in myself. Then on top of all this, I had a client who owed us $400,000 when we were $1 million company, and said, hey, I'm not going to pay. Go ahead and sue me. My wife's a lawyer, and we'll just eat it up in court. It was like this no hope. There was no hope. And actually, at that time, around 2012, I didn't even get out of bed for like a month. It was a dismal place. And at that moment, luckily, I was fortunate enough to have a great wife, someone that got me through it, that could wake up every day and saw brighter sides. But I wasn't that person. And there was something at that time of her just getting me out of bed and dressing me and being like, get your ass out, let's go back to work, where you kind of click. And for everyone, it's different. That was my lowest low. And you have to go through those lows.
How'd you get to that 450K?
Oh, man, it was the greatest thing ever. So you're sitting at your lowest low. You see no possible outcome of the future, right? I mean, you're in a bad spot. And that's when, for me personally, I found a group of CEOs. I found a group called Vistage. I had a great coach over here, and he saw me in my lows, and he said, hey, maybe we could help. You want to come over to one of our meetings? And I was like, oh, geez, what is this? And I felt like I was like going to like this therapy session or something. I don't know what I was going to, but I went to this session, and they had a speaker. And this speaker talked about being triggered. In certain things in your life can trigger you, and triggers put you in this position of, maybe it's in a depression or whatever. Well, I was obviously depressed. And then he sat there and picked on me and worked through my issue. And what happened was we had this contract that was paying us hundreds of thousands of dollars a month through a third party coming to us. And they owed us this enormous amount of money, but this work still needed to get done. So my negotiation that I got through the group was this, going to this person and saying, tell you what, you keep your 400,000, let us go to the client direct. The client happened to have 2 projects for $200,000 each. And if we did them perfect, we'd get out of debt and we'd be back to zero. So that client ended up being the NFL. And 15 years later or so, they're still a client today. And that's how I got through it.
What I really like about that is you could kind of look at that almost as like a sunken cost fallacy, right? You didn't stick yourself, you didn't plant your sword in the ground. I mean, sword's the wrong saying, but and say I have that 450,000, because you know as well as I do. I mean, that was never coming back to you, right?
It was never coming back.
You got
not
creative.
even an option.
You didn't have an option, right? But another thing I want to point out to our listeners is if you have a challenging situation like this, or you're depressed, whatever it is, you don't have to go at it alone. I mean, you can be it's very isolated sometimes as a CEO. I mean, there's certain things you can talk to people about, certain things you can't, but think about this great group or these individuals you were vulnerable enough to share. They help give you some ideas and you problem solved and you turn this into a client that's been one of your flagship clients or probably your flagship client for the last 15 years.
Yeah,
and
that's correct.
You worked within your constraints, which great leaders do, found a solution and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's our job as CEOs. That's our job. You know, some people are built for it, some aren't. And you won't know until you have difficult decisions. It's easy to lead and be a CEO when everything's going great. Let me tell you, it's really, really easy. Anyone can do it. It's when it gets hard. It's when difficult decisions need to be had. It's when you got to make decisions. Over the years, through all those times from 2000 to 2008, COVID, each one of those we flipped and we hopped what we call the S curve. You know, the S curve, we hopped to another level in the S curve and redefined who we were and became stronger, became better. Our culture was tighter and we kept laser focusing on who we really were. You know, one of the greatest things on COVID, when that happened in March, I remember being at my house. We were doing our first Zoom meeting with everyone in the company. Once a month, we bring the whole company together, kind of do hey, let's talk about the company's health, where we're at. We get to meet some new people. I mean, we do a lot of things, but once a month, we bring everyone together. And it was the first time when everyone's coming together and you could see the fear in everyone's eyes. Fear like I've never seen in my life. And all the eyes are on you. How are you going to react? What are you going to say? What's your body language saying? Every little thing we're doing was being analyzed. And all people wanted was hope. That's it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the equation, I got clients calling me left and right. You can keep working. I don't know if I can pay you. Right? Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, you're getting your bank credit ready, You can't share this fear with everybody. But instead, the night before, I read a story about the bison. Right? And I started the entire meeting with the story of a bison. American bison. As a matter of fact, I may have called it a buffalo in the beginning, but I was quickly told it was a bison, the American bison. And the American bison does something really different than any other animal in the world. When a storm comes, a bison looks straight at that storm, puts all the children and weak in the middle, surrounds the weak, and together they go through the storm. Because they know that when they get to the other side of the storm, there's safety and food. And in sharing that story with the company, I told them we all have to be the bisons. And that evening, I sent everybody shirts, right? be a bison, right? And that became our mascot, like that. But it was because they had a story that represented something at the time that we actually believed in, and we all needed to believe in something because what was going on was miserable,
Beyond miserable. Yeah. I mean, so I remember those times. I mean, obviously, it wasn't very long ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
What advice do you have for leaders the night before their big company meeting in a situation like this? It could be whether it's being disrupted by AI and having to make a big pivot, or having to do layoffs, or just where you're coming into a really difficult conversation with either your whole team or a big group of your team. What advice do you have for them, whether it's around preparing or what they should be comfortable sharing, or just like what's one thing that they should be doing?
Oh, man. I'm probably the worst person to ask on this one because I feel like I'm going to say something opposite of everyone else or anything you're going to hear.
That's good. People need to hear something different.
People prep and they spin and they do all this BS. Sometimes you just got to speak from the heart. And yeah, there's a lot on the line. But what people want to hear is from you, from in here. They don't want to hear the script that you put through 20 people and AI and has no feeling or heart. Right? Get rid of all that. You know the situation. You know your culture. You know what's at risk. Talk to them. Tell them from the heart what's really happening. Don't sugarcoat. Tell them what the reality is. Give them hope of why they should be on your ship. Why with you? Why are you the captain? What are you going to do about it? Give them that hope.
It's absolutely true. I mean, people want to follow people who are authentic and genuine, right? And they're vulnerable, but they do it with confidence, right? Because we may not have it all figured out. We may not have the answer, but we're going to figure out. We're going to be the bite. We're going to figure it out somehow.
I don't have degrees from Harvard and Wharton Business School or anything like that. I never had a mentor from those schools or from billion-dollar companies. But what people know about our company, the ones that really work here, I, as a CEO, care. I care about them. And they know through actions that I will do everything in my power to give them success. Everything.
What are some of those actions?
Oh man, some I keep really private. So I'll tell you the best ones are the ones that I'll never talk about because they're the ones. There's companies that like do these things, and then they got to promote it on LinkedIn. Right. Look how awesome we are to our people. So-and-so had this issue that happened, and look what our CEO did. And our leadership is so caring. There's a delicate line there. And I love that when life events happen in people's lives, there's that private thing that happens between the organization and them that they weren't ever expecting that gets done. And these could be when people lose family members, when they lose spouses, kids. We've been through it all. And it's what's said between maybe their manager or leadership or the CEO, things that you do to make their lives simpler and easy and know that they got their back. And those are the things we really look at. And those are the things that I like to promote and do and empower people in our organization to do. But we keep them private. And sure, we do dabble with a couple culture things where we put it out there and so forth. But that's not where culture is built. No, it's the stuff that happens under the layer.
You just said that your people know you have their back. And I think that is something that I've always really worked hard at for Learn It. We just had our 30-year anniversary, and a bunch of people came who first got their first shot at Learn It, and they said, I feel like you always had my back and you gave me a shot. And a lot of times people would say, and I feel like this is the same thing for your culture, is that they just didn't want to let me down or Learn It down because of this. How do you go about, creating a culture where people don't want to let you down for the right reasons, not through manipulation or whatever, but a culture where people feel like, you know what, I don't want to let Nick and Orsis down?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. The answer is psychological safety, point blank, especially in the time of AI, right? Like you have all this conversation, look how AI is going to take on all these jobs, da, 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 da. It's the psychological safety that you have to do and give. And there is no formula that's perfect for psychological safety. It's a lot of things. One of the things we do at Orsis is I'm very transparent on how much I fail. Very transparent, because I believe that you have to fail often. You have to fail fast. You have to fail cheap. And tomorrow we're actually having a company meeting.
Can you give an example?
There's a project called we're going to be talking about for 15 minutes. Oopsies. Orsis oopsies. And it's about, hey, there are no experts in AI right now, and you have to become, and the way you become is by you solve problems. Well, a month ago, my assistant, I told her, I was like, let's use AI agents to start automating things. So she built an AI agent on her own that went in my calendar and checked with people if we had a meeting, and if so, it sent them a email. That didn't work so well. Went out to a lot more people in the calendar than expected. Yeah. It was an oopsie.
Yeah.
But there's two ways to handle that, right? There's the right way and the wrong way. The right way was, wow, that's awesome that you experimented and you tried something new. Did it work out and give us the results? No. Did anyone get hurt? No. Let's fix it and let's try it again. And you have to share those stories in a company where it's okay to screw up and say, oops.
What happens if you handle that the wrong way?
Then you're going to build that toxic environment that I had in 2012 that I never want to go back to. You're going to have high turnover. You're going to have people who won't be honest with you. You're going to have people failing, but not saying they're failing and going over on budgets and not asking for help. It spirals down extremely quick. And I truly do believe, even with the world of AI, like you have to allow that room of error. You have to allow that room of error. You have to give people that psychological safety space to fail and have their back. We had a really bad oopsie moment like 2 years ago that brought down like half the ATMs in the United States. That's an oopsie. How did we handle that? Hey, we had this accident that happened over a freaking comma. Let's fix it. Let's identify and find the issue. Let's fix it. Let's support the person that made this mistake right now.
But I want to know your very first reaction when you got that call.
The newer version of me was like understanding the issue. Number one, what happened? What's at risk? Understanding the problem. And then immediately ensuring the client, hey, we got that 100%. We're at it. I don't want to talk about how it happened right now. I don't care. It's happened. Now, how do we react to it? Because how we react to it and solve it's everything. That's all I can control. And how do you do that with positivity? I already know the person who did it. Imagine what they're feeling. Oh. Right? You think it's going to help at all going in there being like, what's that going to get you?
Nothing.
Exactly.
It's already happened.
It's already, yeah. So, hey, this is the situation. Who are the best people that you want around you to solve this with? Who's going to be that group of bison around you that's going to get you through this right now? Let's pick them. Boom, boom, boom. Here's the problem. Let's go. And we went through it together and we got through it. Obviously we made a compensation, We made it right with the client. Did I even share that with the person or the team? Absolutely not. Because what I want them focused on is solving the problem the right way. And they did that. The rest is on me as a business owner.
I think that's so important. At the end of the day, when things go well, give your team the credit. Hey, it's all, shine light back on them. But when shit happens, it needs to be the business owner that's out there saying, this is me, it's my business, and have the back of your team. Because if you don't do that, all those bad things you mentioned, toxic, would happen. You know what else happens? People don't come up with ideas. People don't take the initiative to do things.
Yes.
And they hide down low because they don't want to stir the pot at all. And it doesn't sound like that's how your organization, they don't innovate.
Yeah.
So speaking of innovation, I want to get to AI in a second, but it seems like your team's been able to adapt and change multiple times, right? And change is hard. Now, there are great companies out there who have great people, but they have a hard time with these changes. I mean, is there anything specific besides just what we talked about, having people's backs and everything, getting people to, I don't know, disrupt themselves or be comfortable enough to realize that, hey, we have to make these pivots. And like right now, you have to make this pivot into AI, right? We have to do that. So how do we help companies push through that to become AI ready, let's say, in this case?
Yeah. There's a process. Absolutely. People tend to work in a state of being frozen every day, right? And I say this where we come to work, we do our thing, we go home, we have our process, boom, 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 boom. And people come in and they're kind of pre-programmed to work a certain way. And what you have to do is give them some reason to go from a frozen stage to being in a stage of being ready to change, right? And there's a process of how you go about doing that. And I think the first step is creating a sense of urgency. We have to do this because of these reasons. So you got to create that urgency. You got to build a coalition. You got to form a vision. And that allows people to unfreeze, right? Number one. Then they're in this change mode from there. So we're in stage 2. We're in a change mode, an implementation mode. This is most important. First thing you do, enlist some volunteers for help. Notice I said volunteers, not voluntold. The volunteers are the ones that will lead the way. I'm interested in learning Claude code. Let me experiment and see what I can come back with. And you list this army of volunteers. And as the volunteers are going through it, our job as managers and leaders is to remove any barriers, right? That's our job. And as you remove those barriers, you keep reminding them, we need really simple wins. Don't try to change everything. Keep them small, real simple wins. And once they get those simple wins, they're now to stage 3, which we refreeze them in the stage of keeping that increase of that pace of making those wins. And then you're able to institute change. So that's change management 101 over here of how we do it.
Let's see. I was never a good student at Arizona State, but let's see how I did on this. So one is you got to get them out of the state of being frozen. So it's a sense of urgency. So you create a coalition, but you don't voluntold them. You find volunteers, people who are open and ready to go for this change. And then you go for small wins, right? Yeah. And because you can't boil the ocean, so you get some small wins, and then from there you create a motion of just getting small win after small win and evolve that way.
Yeah.
What did I leave out?
Well, the middle ones of each one. So in the first stage, create urgency, build a coalition, form a strategic vision. Then from there, that's unfreezing. Then in the change phase, enlist your volunteers. Remove any barriers, generate easy wins. That's the change. And then you refreeze, increase the pace, you've institute your change. And that is the 8-step change model. Yeah.
Love it.
Now, I also want to say I did not invent that, by the way. It sounds awesome. Anyone can do Psychology 101 and Google Kurt Lewin. He's the father of psychology. That's where it came from.
We'll put him in the show notes, and we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, okay. from the 1940s, man.
Hey, it's all right, but that's what works for you and your team, right? And that's what's helped you pivot and move, and you win some awards for great cultures and everything. We've touched on this a couple of times, but now we got the AI that's disrupting everything. It could be our biggest, most fearful, uncertain. Also, can be the very best thing we've ever been through. We don't know yet, right? And you and I were talking about this before. 80% of AI change initiatives are failing. So maybe let's talk a little bit about what Orsys is doing about it, or just in general, what organizations, starting with leadership, should start doing about becoming AI ready.
Yeah. There's a lot here. So I'll start at the highest level, and I'll say this: when bringing AI into a company, it has to start with leadership. Leadership has to be using it. They have to understand it. They have to understand the value of it. Once leadership is doing that, then you can start bringing it down. A lot of times I'm seeing leadership saying, let's go use AI, but it's coming from a person on a BlackBerry using AOL email. It doesn't work. So where we believe here is starting at the top. We believe that you have to have a great vision for how you're going to bring AI into your organization, because without a vision, you're going to have confusion. You need to have consensus within your team of what it's going to do. And consensus is really important, because if you don't have consensus, whatever you come up with AI will be sabotaged. That's what we're finding. A lot of these failures are because people are scared and they're sabotaging AI implementation. That's something different. All because consensus wasn't there. Next piece is you got to give people skills. You can't just say, hey, let's go use AI. You have to invest in the people. You have to give them opportunities to learn and give them the skill sets. Because without any skills.
What are some of the skills?
Well, they could be as different levels all over the place. I mean, from writers, it could be, how do you write good prompts with the right context? Just prompt engineering. From a coder's perspective, how do you use Claude Code? How do you change the way that you're doing designing of UI, UX, and interfaces now with Lovable? You got to give them time to learn those skills, because if you don't give them time to learn those skills, you're just building anxiety in them, right? Anxiety is not good. Another part you have to have when you bring AI in an organization, the incentives. You got to get the incentives right. That one can be a really interesting topic. You have to give them the right resources. That could be money. That could be people's time. And most importantly, at the end of that, you have to give them an action plan, an actual plan, or else they're just going to have these false starts of stop, go with AI. So we really work at leadership of solving all of those at a high level. And then we have a framework to bring it down to others.
And so you can't just solve it from hiring a AI chief AI officer.
I really don't think so. One of the fallacies that I see out there right now is, hey, let's just hire an AI consultant that will solve everything, or let's hire a chief AI officer. First off, let me say, if you're really good at AI, you think you're going to be doing that, or are you going to be like actually building, the next ChatGPT? Let's just put it out there. So we really do believe that you can have an AI officer that maybe is helping with like the strategy and helping people move barriers. But you really have, what I think in an organization, 3 types of leaders that are getting AI done. You have your builders, your engineers and so forth that are actually using a lot of these tools. You have integrators that understand the workflows within an organization. And then you have your connectors, the ones that understand the investments and the outcomes of that. And they all have to work together. So what we're really finding for the first time ever, what AI is doing is it's so unique. In the past, if I wanted to build an app, I'd have to get like 6 really smart people together to build an app. Now I can just use a tool and get my thoughts in a product, and I can get a clickable prototype on my own. And I need less people to get it out the door. So it really changes software completely. People say, oh, well, software development's dead. Not at all. I mean, you still have to code this stuff out. Unless, Damon, if you feel like being a coder, like if that's somewhere you really want to spend your day, you could, but
no, thank you, man. No,
yeah, it's like you still need these people that can take these requirements and build and actually get them to be functional. So it's really easy to get 0 to 90% really, really fast, but getting 90% to 100 is really, really hard right now, and that gap will close over time.
Yeah, I think. And we're also going to be moving into, hybrid environments where you have humans managing AI agents and everything like that, which, repurposing people to work on different things. And I think it's so important. What is like one avenue or outcome that just say a small business, they got a couple hundred people. What is one small win they can, you've seen people having more success than in other areas for adopting and implementing AI inside the organization?
It's really all over the place. The way that I'll share my story and I'll share how, so I explain it to people in our organization. I look at everything we do in a day like in a ladder, rungs in a ladder. We all do minimum wage jobs every day, all of us. We do $50 an hour job, $100, $500, $1,000 jobs, right? I start at the bottom. Start at the most simplest things and automate it. So for me, I love meeting people. I love connecting people. I'm really good at having conversations with people for the first time and just having really good, vulnerable conversations. I can do it. It's a gift. What I hate doing is prepping for a meeting. I hate it. So I wanted to solve that problem, right? That seems like a feasible problem. So the way I did it first, I documented how I currently, if I was going to do research, how would I do it? I'd go in Perplexity. I'd do web searches on people. I'd scrape LinkedIn. I put all these things together. And then I used an AI agent with a product called N8N. And I created an AI agent that went to my email every morning, understood the context of the meetings I was having, then went in my calendar and took out all the emails of people that I was meeting that didn't have oopsies.com in it. Took those emails and then did research on each of those people by looking at LinkedIn, did a Perplexity search, news about the company, so forth. Then I love behavioral science, psychology. I found a way to find people's DISC profiles. So I was able then to cross-reference that data with a DISC profile and then say, hey, Nick, here's your DISC profile. Here's Damon's DISC profile. This is how you should talk to Damon when you meet him. And at 4:00 in the morning every day, I get an email and it tells me about the person I'm meeting, about their business, their news. It tells me their DISC profile, how I should change myself to be the most present with them in the best ways, and tells me all the information I need to start having a meaningful conversation. So that was my first AI agent that I built, that I then took and made it available to all of our people at Orsys. And now I'm in the process of saying, wow, based on everybody's feedback, Damon, wouldn't this be a nice agent for you to have for $49.95 a month? And I plan on making that a product in the near future.
Well, you got to let me know when it is, because I'm sure Learn It will be a client.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's so simple. It's the simplest thing that we just don't do or have the time. And that's where AI is at right now, right? Eventually, these agents can start learning, and we'll get into AI agents 2.0, but we're at the simplest little dummy agents. So let it do really simple jobs and start there.
I think what you said earlier about, it's going to democratize everything. You don't need 6 coders anymore. Even the playing field. But also, I really like what you say about starting at the ground floor and doing something simple. Getting some win, getting some buyback time, getting people involved, and seeing some wins. Like we talked about the change process. It's so important. Instead of stopping and starting and going for the big elephant, go for something that's kind of easy. I mean, Nick, I could talk to you forever, and it's pretty obvious that you're great at talking to people who you just met. I feel like I'm pretty good at that too myself, and I enjoy it. This has been a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with before we take off?
Oh man,
something good. Think about it.
Something good. Something good. Really. I'll leave you with this. So as we go through the journey of being a great entrepreneur, when things do happen, I always ask myself 3 questions, and I call them the 3 Buddha questions. How did I contribute to the situation? What am I supposed to learn from this? What positive steps can I take moving forward? And that got me through a lot of ups and downs.
I think it's a great way to finish this up. Nick, this is awesome. And we started off, we talked about your first time in the boardroom. You created a product that got 100,000 users. Oh, I meant to ask you, who's your favorite guitar player of all time?
Oh,
80s rock preferable.
It is, yes. You did your homework, by the way. So, so right now, because I grew up listening to Ozzy and because he just passed away, I am really getting into Randy Rhoads right now, who I think is one of the top. And I'm actually in talks, if all works well, with the person that built the Flying V guitar for Randy Rhoads. I'm in talks on getting a remodel one to his specs. So I hope that works out. Stay tuned.
You got to read my book about having a party for Guns N' Roses. So yeah. Anyways, we'll go on forever for this. But we started off talking about the boardroom. You went in and just told them you could learn lingo and just figured out how to do it. I think that's what great entrepreneurs and great leaders do, is you just find ways to figure it out. I love the conversation around what it was like being in a very vulnerable situation with all the eyes looking at you and people scared during COVID. Previous to that, your great approach to overcoming a $450,000 massive problem when you had only $1 million as a company, and having people to turn to and how you problem solve with that. And that's what leaders do. How to build a culture where people feel like that they have your back and they don't want to let you down. So we talked about that, and we talked about going from being frozen to a sense of urgency. And now we're talking about AI and your Buddha questions, which I heard about before, which I love that we're ending it on that. This has been awesome. And for our listeners out there, what I want you to think about, the one action I want you to take is, Nick got out of his comfort zone. Maybe he was in his comfort zone, but he sitting across from that guy after driving for 6 hours, and he kind of called him out, and I think a lot of this led to where he's at today by making decisions like that. I want you to think about a situation you're in right now. If there's a difficult conversation or if there's a pivot your company needs to make, and take the first step to making that decision. Please do that. And where can our listeners connect with you at?
They can come to our website, orases.com, ORASES.com.
And if you're into AI readiness, I also recommend that you connect with Nick on LinkedIn. I shot over to my team a couple of his AI ready posts that he did as of late. So, Nick, you've been awesome. And everybody, until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and have a great day. Thank you.
So for me, good or bad, shame can be a big intrinsic motivator. So an internal motivator. I'm from a love language person. I'm a word